Hello, and welcome to the Earthly Roots podcast,
where we chat all things gardening, homesteading, and connecting to nature.
We're your hosts, Diane and Robyn.
The Earthly Roots podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. All right, we are back with another episode. I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation, kind of a little bit different from some of our other ones, which were really kind of garden focused. Mm-hmm. This one is going to be a little bit more homesteading focused, talking about alternative living and us kind of gardening in temporary locations and rental locations. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting topic.
Yeah, it's right up my alley right now. For most of you that know us well or have listened to the podcasts in the past, Sam and I are converting a bus, so we're right in there when it comes to alternative living.
Yeah.
But I am also interested in getting to know your perspective on things like eco-villages, on things like where you're going in as far as housing goes. Like, are you going to be one day building a home? Are you planning on renting for the rest of your life, which is totally fine too? And yeah, just how things are going right now and how you're not letting that stop you from gardening or living your best life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of just like making the most of where we are in our lives at the moment, I think is really important, and at least that's what we're trying to do. But you're kind of a little bit ahead with the step, I suppose, with your bus build. And I'm so interested in, why you decided to do that and why you decided to go down that pathway. And I feel like you've really talked about it a little bit on YouTube, but I feel like a podcast is kind of good to delve deeper into that topic and kind of, talk about the ins and outs of why you decided to do that.
Yeah, because 7 years ago when we first started on this journey, a bus wasn't something that was up our alley or something we even thought of. But now that we're in it, now that we've researched what it means to live in a bus home and what it takes to convert it, we really feel like this is our step forward. Sam and I are wanderlusters. Like, we love to travel, we love to explore new places. And as soon as we figured out that we can have our home on the back or on top of wheels and then be able to take it anywhere and explore anything around Australia, like, that really fit in with what we wanted our life to be. We want our kids to grow up experiencing lots of different things. We want ourselves to be able to see more than just what's in our backyard.
Yeah.
And I think by converting this home, we're literally going to be traveling and have the comforts of home anywhere we go. And that's really cool.
That's so cool. It's so different to what I kind of envisioned for my life, though. But I really appreciate that you're kind of going down that route.
Yeah, and literally. It's not for everyone.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, but it's so interesting, and I feel like it will also open up opportunities when you do kind of buy a property, if that's what you want to do. We can talk about that later. But yeah, and then actually you've got your home there already done, which so many people are struggling right now just to get into the housing market. It's like we're really struggling to save for a deposit to buy a house, because that's kind of the route that we would want to go down. But yeah, you're kind of one step ahead. It's so exciting.
I wouldn't say we're one step ahead. I think it's more so that Sam and I moved up to the Bega Valley where we are right now because we wanted to buy a home. And at the time when we moved up, it was affordable for us. But then because we had to go through bank loans, we kept being put at a stop still. So we got told that we both had to work in New South Wales for 6 months each before we could start qualifying and applying for loans. And as soon as we had to take that 6 months of full-time work or casual work, which is what we were doing back then, the housing crisis hit, the prices doubled, if not tripled, and it really did push us out of the market as young buyers.
Yeah.
And for a while, for the last 2 years or year and a half that we've been up here, we've kind of felt like sitting ducks because we were looking for the perfect block of land. And although we made the most of our rental property and we built our gardens, we started farming and having animals, we still felt like we weren't achieving our goals, which was to have our home. And so the bus was a really great way of just starting.
Yeah.
And I think that was just something that we both really needed to get our drive back and our motivation and make it feel a little less hopeless, which sometimes when you're being pushed out of a housing market, that can feel that way.
Yeah. It's been quite depressing actually, just to look on realistate.com and see, you know, what our dream or what I would like my dream to be, a beautiful property with a house, and just not be anywhere near to affording it. But I suppose we're kind of also going towards that direction. While we're not physically like building our house or anything, we're doing everything else that we can possibly do to get to that dream, which for us, or for me personally, is the flower farm. So starting all of those kind of side business ventures that ultimately will hopefully help pay for a house, but that we can also have when we have the house, we can get back into farming and have that kind of business mindset and structure already there. Yeah,
it's almost like you're learning while you're waiting. Yeah. It's kind of like, I think it's just from Roots and Refuge is always referring to it as the waiting room or the classroom before you actually get your permanent place.
Yeah.
So what does, sorry. We're both just so excited.
I know, this is such a cool topic.
Where do we start?
I was going to say, but I haven't been here for like in that mindset for a few years though. I think it took me about 2 or 3 years to actually fully accept that this is what it's going to be for a while. Like I was kind of down in the dumps for a while, not having what I really wanted, and that definitely like I was held back a lot. Like I think I could have started a flower farm or other kind of business ventures a lot sooner, but I was in that really bad mind frame of not kind of accepting that this is my classroom. So I think that, you know, is a lot of people are also feeling that, and it's okay, but you know, just I would just, totally recommend just to do it, just to start whatever you want to do. Start really, really small and then work towards what you want. Yeah.
And a lot of landlords, like if you are at a rental, which both of us are at the moment, a lot of landlords are really encouraging and excited if you do want to start a garden, because a lot of them just appreciate the fact that you're taking care of their property, that you're putting care and effort into what you're doing. And there's so many different ways that you can be living and gardening alternatively than just having gardens in the ground. I know that you've lived in a lot of rentals and properties where you haven't been able to do in-ground garden beds. So what have been some of the best ways that you have overcome that?
I mean, we lived in Brisbane and in the city, kind of inner city area, and we had always moved every single year as well, like because we were changing housemates and just life stages were changing. So I was always ready to move. I never knew I was going to stay in one place for even more than a year. So we just had a lot of pots, so lots of containers of herbs and smaller things that we were growing. But I was going towards more like visiting lots of farmers markets then and trying to just learn about food in different ways because I couldn't physically grow them. But I know we did visit a lot of community gardens, so that's a really great option and a way, if you're interested in gardening, that is. I know there's so many other things about homesteading, but there are lots of community members out there who will probably be in the same like space and want to kind of form a group and where you can learn together.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And speaking of working together and having housemates, I know that something that we wanted to talk about today is, and this is a question that I mostly have for you, because the first day that we met and you came over here for the first time, I remember you asking whether there were any eco villages around in the area, because this area that we're in right now is actually very well known for its permaculture communities, and eco villages go really hand in hand with that as people are trying to live alternatively together, minimize not only see their impact on the land, but also be able to make the job of homesteading or raising farm animals and gardens a lot easier. So I want to know, like, what is your opinion on eco-villages? Like, why was that something you were curious in?
Yeah, I suppose I'm really interested about them. I'm interested in how they function, how people can live together in what I would consider is a smaller area. Like there's a lot of people, or not a lot, but more people in an area that I probably would like on our property when we do buy.
Would you ever live in an eco-village?
Probably not.
Yeah.
That's
Why?
Why?
Can of worms opened.
I find them really interesting, and I think there is something really important about just knowing yourself and knowing how you work with other people. And I'm a really, really independent person, so that's my main reason why I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
I really like making decisions. I like being the team leader in a situation when it affects me. And I suppose that might be because I've, had different experiences with living with people in the past. And I just know that, it only takes one person to not have it how you would envision the way, it might look or you might read about. But I'm more interested in understanding whether or not they are sustainable, whether or not multiple groups and multiple communities can be established and be functional and actually reduce their environmental impact, or whether having people living on, in a house on a bigger area of land, whether that might not be sustainable, because not everyone could do that. There's so many people in the world. There'd be eco-villages popping up everywhere. So
yeah, and what would that look like?
Yeah, I'm just interested in looking at the benefits versus the negatives. And I probably don't know too much about a lot of them so far. That's why I was just kind of interested to know whether there were any around that we could, or that I could learn about and understand.
Yeah, because there's lots in different places in Australia and lots overseas as well. So for those that may not have heard the term eco-villages before, it's essentially a group of people coming together that might all share the same values and morals and thoughts of what life should be like or can be like, and being able to use one block of land to live on. And a lot of the time these people work together, and it looks really different for different eco-villages. I've seen tiny home villages. I've seen others where they have one big communal home and they all live within that. I know Sam and I have talked to friends and family in the past about, we've even explored the idea of an eco-village or our version of it in the future as well, because we really value the help that others can give you in achieving a project. And we really love the idea of having our closest friends and family here working with us, because homesteading takes a lot of hard work, and on a large scale, feeding a family, it's tough. Like getting out there every day, doing the weeding, planting things, harvesting and putting things away, caring for animals, and then all of the little repair jobs that come up as well. So I know that when Sam and I first started on this journey, we had our housemates. We were living with our housemates back then, and we all felt like we shared that similar value and morals and what we wanted out of life. We all wanted a big block of land out in a rural location. We wanted to live off the land and be able to be self-sufficient. But then we noticed as we started to talk about what that would be like and decision making and what each person's ideal housing or work life situation would be like, we noticed that those different personalities from people didn't always match up. So we had one housemate who essentially said that he wanted like a junkyard as part of his home because he wanted to collect things and just be able to have them around. And to Sam, that gave like this warning light of, oh my God, a junkyard on our property. Not only will that be an eyesore, but potentially we'll have snakes. And if we have children in the future, that can be really detrimental. So it really does go back to not all personalities are able to live together in a small space. And I mean, we still are considering inviting our family and friends to live with us one day. But instead of it being one communal space, we really think it's more beneficial to have one big block of land, whether it's 100 acres or something similar to that, and each person having their own little setup on the land, and then having a communal garden or a communal area where people can come and just hang out and preserve food and bring their skills together. But I know you mentioned as well when we talked about this earlier that one person's way of gardening might not be exactly the same as someone else's. So
yeah, and that's probably also why I just want to live alone.
Yeah,
Sounds
and
really
that's
bad.
okay.
But
No.
yeah, I've just accepted that that's, what we would like. And I still want to have a lot of the help and a community and everything like that. Like I love having people over and helping out in the garden and the house and everything like that. I think when it's just like the decision-making part, I would find really, really hard. So with gardening, I like to experiment and just do random things in the garden. I like to be alone in the garden. It's where it's really great for my mental health, it's basically my happy place. And I love it when people come and visit, but I still like to have control over it. And but there are so many different styles of gardening. And it's not always like this, but I know a lot of eco-villages are very permaculture focused. And it's kind of one of the principles of permaculture really is the community focus. And you can take that to mean however you want. Like it really doesn't have to mean an eco-village that you have to go live with people. And I have taken what I want from that kind of concept, and community for me is having people visit and doing this kind of thing, podcasting, education. But for other people, that's more physical and looks like living in a house with different people, having a garden together, which I think that's probably the most interesting part for me is the amount of positive impact that these eco-villages can have on the community and provide food which is locally grown, organic, and just tastes amazing. Yeah. That's what I find most interesting.
Appealing as well. Yeah. So if I'm wondering if you had the potential to be in an eco-village where you had your own space and your own garden, but you were to share the land, how would that change your opinion of what it could be? Or is it just the idea that the land belongs to many that worries you?
I don't know.
Like, where do your reservations come from? Because, as we mentioned before, eco-villages can look really different. Or what does your ideal home look like, and why would that not fit into an eco-village system?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the eco-villages I've been to up around the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, a lot of them were a little bit smaller, so you could see the other person's house and you could see your neighbours, which isn't a bad thing. That's what we have right now where we live. But so our goal, our dream, I say our, it's really my dream. Scott's just along for the ride, but he shares some of the dreams, is to have a house and a garden and a flower farm and also be able to do things like host weddings on our property.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and have it more kind of, it be a community centre that people come and visit and do workshops and things like that rather than people living around. And I think I wouldn't want to... I would just be held back a lot by having to ask people all the time, like, is it okay if I have this event? Is it okay if we stay up a bit later with this event that we might have? There's going to be people over at this time. Just taking all of that out just reduces my stress a lot.
Yeah. And with eco villages, a lot of the time you have some people that contribute monetarily and then other people that contribute with their hard work and time. And so I guess when you do have a business happening on the property, that can look really different because you're contributing not only monetarily, but also And so it's that balance of, is everyone pulling their weight? Is everyone fairly contributing to this bigger mission and goal?
Yeah, which you can't really afford to have someone not doing one of those parts in a business, or else it kind of falls apart. And then you come into conflict, which is something I want to stay away from. I've had my fair share of just minor conflicts with other housemates, and it's just the worst feeling just to kind of know that you're living close to someone and you don't quite agree, or they don't quite agree with you, and it's just such a bad feeling. I don't know. I don't like that.
And in close proximity as well, you feel like you can't get away from it, and it's almost like you bottle it in and fester, and it becomes a bigger problem than it needs to. At least I know that used to be me with housemates.
Yeah.
Because I only lived with housemates that 1 year when I first moved out of home with Sam. And I remember it being quite a challenge in living with others and compromising and figuring out what I do and what someone else does and how that like comes together. And a lot of the time it's cleaning and
the little things.
Yeah. But it can really add up and change the way you perceive home and the peacefulness and safety of your space when it's shared with others.
And I think that then is a little different with family though, because you were talking about maybe living with family and closer friends, and that's where it would be different. And I would love to have my parents, if they wanted to, stay and be able to help out with the business with our property and our dream. And but I just probably would just be more hesitant with a stranger unless it was kind of a woofer situation.
Yeah.
By having people come and work, and we provide them with accommodation and they can learn something, because that's ultimately our goal. Like, I love education in the homesteading and gardening sphere. That's kind of what I would really like to get into, and having the property where we can have all of these different projects going on and have people working, but it just be like a constant flow of different faces, different people learning what they want and then applying it elsewhere and sharing the knowledge around.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you are still in control. It is still your property, your goals, your missions. You are putting in all the time, money and effort, and anyone that you're inviting onto your property, like a woofer or a family, is there to support that dream and to be a part of it as well and gain a lot from it, whether it's learning, whether it's community and friendship, family, or even just the fruit and vegetables and sharing in that abundance. And I think that's what we came to as well, and something that we've talked about with our family, that in the future when we do invest in a block of land, we do hope that it will be in our name and our responsibility, but we are hopeful that they'll be a part of that mission as well, because we do share a lot of similar traits and morals and values with our family. And what brings us together as a family and allows us to solve problems when they do occur, it's easier to do with someone you have already solved problems with for your whole life, as opposed to a newer friend or someone who maybe you haven't had those same kinds of conflicts and differences in personality.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Do you have kind of like a time frame for what you can envision, the bus build and potentially buying a bit of land?
Yeah, minus 2 years.
Minus 2
I
years,
expected it to already happen. I expected that as soon as I moved up to New South Wales 2 years ago, that Sam would have found the perfect block of land and we would be ready to build and ready to go. So I do feel like our plans have had to change naturally with what's going on in real life. It's really funny because one of the properties that was available to buy 2 years ago when we first moved up here is our neighbours.
Oh, wow.
At the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
They literally bought the property that we had considered, but it didn't have water at the time, and it's quite a steep property, especially compared to ours. And so we didn't want to commit to it.
It'd be harder with a bus then, or any kind of transport.
Definitely. Well, they actually had a bus when they first moved up onto it. Yeah. It was just a shell of a bus, so it wasn't a working bus like ours, and they were planning on converting it. But when they started doing the process, they noticed that, one, the bus was getting really hot inside, which is really normal because it's a metal box. And then they noticed the time and money that they would have to put into it to build it into a home wasn't worth it, especially when they got a better opportunity of having I think right now they have, it's not a shipping container home, but it's kind of like a modular kit home.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Which is another form of alternative living. And they're currently living in that, enjoying the peacefulness of their property, low rent costs or mortgage costs while they're building their dream home.
Yeah, I think that's probably where we might also go down the route, just because I go on realistate.com like almost every day and dream and look at houses in Tasmania and the Huon Valley, and it's so beautiful. Yeah, but it's very expensive.
It is.
And I'm just not comfortable with paying for that much money for something. It's like, beautiful houses, but might not be exactly what we want. Yeah. I would probably much rather buy kind of a smaller, not quite a tiny home, but just maybe more of a modular home that could then be turned into an Airbnb eventually, and focus on building our dream home. Because I used to be a really impatient person, and I wanted it like right now. I was just focused on saving money, not like doing anything else with my life really. Like I was really focused on saving and putting all of my effort into that. But I just kind of realized like I'm 27 now, and I really want to enjoy my life a little bit more and take it a little bit slower. And like doing the flower farm has really opened up so many things for me in terms of my like enjoying my life a little bit more.
That's
and
great.
Yeah, it's made me think that it can be a little bit slower. Like I can just take a step back, and there are so many other opportunities. And probably seeing you do the bus build as well, like I'd never really thought about all of those kinds of alternative housing. I'd always just thought I got to get a house and a land, and that's all I've got to do.
Yeah.
But it's kind of opened my eyes up a little bit just to think like it's just stepping stones to where we want to be. And as long as I'm enjoying each step and each of the processes, then that's the main thing, really.
Yeah. And that's the main thing about alternative homes, or like those stepping stones or temporary arrangements, whether it be a yurt, a bus conversion, a caravan, a modular home, a kit home. There's so many, a tiny house. There's so many out there, and they are just that step forward. And a lot of them being alternative and quite unique and beautiful in their own way, if done well, can be great Airbnbs and an income source into the future, making living at home and working off the land a lot more less of a dream and more a reality, which is really important.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people like living in tiny homes forever as well, and they like to make it their permanent home. And that's where, again, you've really got to just know yourself and your personality type. And I know that I couldn't do that with
not forever.
Scott and having kids. And I would like a bigger piece of land and property and house and have the business and everything like that.
Yeah, because you really do value and appreciate your alone time. It's like your zen moment to relax and center again.
Yeah, I'm definitely very introverted and get my energy from my alone time, and then I can come back and come with community and talk and be present. But alone time is important, and that is harder in a smaller space. It can still be done, and I know there are a lot of people with tiny homes who do that, but it's not for us. Yeah,
of course. And that's okay. And I would never force a type of living arrangement on anyone. I definitely agree that it wouldn't work for everyone. And what I love about our bus conversion and the idea of a home on a bus is that it feels roomy enough, and you can really plan out and build the house to look the way that is perfect for you and your lifestyle. So Sam and I love entertaining and cooking, and so having a big living area and kitchen was the number one priority for us. We wanted to have a shower and a bathroom, a toilet on the bus, so that wherever we go, we are self-sufficient and we can have that luxury, because there's nothing worse, I'm sure, than being caught on the road for a while and not having that luxury of a toilet.
It's so big actually inside. It's so roomy, the bus.
It is. It really is. And I feel like even as we're planning it out and putting everything in place, not that we're building yet, we're still in that planning phase, but I'm already looking at it and feeling like there's so much more room than I expected it to have. But the bus for us, I don't think is going to be our permanent forever home. It's our home for right now. It suits our business. It suits our lifestyle, and it allows us to travel and see a lot of other permaculture properties, farms, and other things at the end of our build. that I think otherwise we wouldn't have had the opportunity to see.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people asked me, why are we building a bus conversion? Why not just get a caravan?
Yeah.
And it really does go back to, we have expectations of how we're living right now and what's comfortable for us. We have 3 dogs
Yeah.
and a cat that we need to fit into the space as well. We know we're going to eventually have a young family. And so these are all factors that we need to consider as we're building our home. A caravan is just such a small space. And not only that, but it's unaffordable.
Yeah.
We would probably spend twice as much on a really good big caravan, and it still wouldn't tick all the boxes of what we would want to live comfortably in.
Yeah, that's interesting. What about all the animals? What are you going to do with the animals when you decide to...
You mean the chickens and the sheep?
Yeah,
Yeah, so our animals, right now, the animals that we have, we've got egg-layered chickens, so they're more like pets rather than food, and our sheep as well are there as pets and as part of our business. We have talked to our neighbours, so we're really close to most of the people on our property, which, by the way, all have alternative homes or have had at some point, so I'll touch on that in a moment. But they've all been really willing to support us in the journey, because we're only planning on traveling in the bus for maybe a year maximum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
so not forever.
I thought it would be a little bit longer, but
it could be,
cool.
and that's the flexibility of having our home on wheels, that we can stop for as long or as little as we like. And I'm so looking forward to just everything that brings, because it's going to have its challenges. The bus is going to probably break down multiple times. There's going to be places where we stop that we're not allowed to be in. But anyways, that's in the future, and future Diane can think about that.
Yeah.
But all our neighbours have already put their hands up to looking after the animals for us.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of farms around us as well, and connections that we've built where they'll look after the animals that we do have, and then when we come back we can settle right back in.
Yeah.
Or if we decide to settle in a different place in Australia, then it might just be something more to think about of how we're going to transport them. Are we going to sell them and then buy new animals? Again, it's something that we've kind of thought about, but it's also so far into the future still that there's lots of options, and yet the best decision will come when that comes around.
Yeah.
Cool. But touching on my neighbours, a lot of these properties up on our hill, it was a subdivided farm.
Okay.
So there used to only be the one main home at the top of the hill, and then all of the rest of the land was used for cattle.
Okay.
Yeah. So when the farmer decided to minimise because he had lots of farms in this area, and when he decided to kind of reduce his upkeep and his land to care for, he started subdividing all of these properties, and I think there's maybe 7 or 8 properties on this road, one of ours, like us being one of them. And a lot of the people that are living on this hill are quite alternative in their thinking, or they had to be quite creative with their homes, because a lot of these properties aren't actually registered with the council to have properties.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and so and that is usually or sometimes can be the driving factor to going alternative, is the council may not approve your home in a certain way. There were bushfires around here as well recently that have really restricted what people can and can't build.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, you need home. You need somewhere to call your own, whether it's a rental, a temporary place, or your permanent home. And so a lot of our neighbours either started off in caravans as their home, our landlord being one of them. Some of them took the alternative path of then building a shipping container home. And one of our neighbours actually has a shipping container, but then he's got another one underneath. So he's got a double-story shipping container with a staircase going down.
That's so cool.
It's incredible. And he's got a lot of carpentry skills and those tradie skills that allowed him to bring that to life. And that's amazing. We've got another neighbour up the road who built like an earthship home as well.
I need to go check that
out. I know.
out.
I'd love to, next time you come around, I'll have to organise with all the neighbours to go and do a tour. Yeah. And then we have another neighbour right up the road that has the traditional home with a beautiful vineyard out the front and a shed and massive windows as well that open out up to the balcony.
Oh, that's so different to like us living in the suburb where I don't know. I
It's
feel
just
like
one type
maybe,
of home.
yeah, maybe I'm just not getting like that inspiration. It's when I come out to places like this, to the country, that I really just remember how that feels to live out here. Like I
Yeah.
was saying the other night, like, oh, it's so quiet and peaceful and beautiful. And yeah, I can't wait to be out here. But yeah, I think I need to maybe just like expose myself to a little bit more, like looking at different housing options and understand it a little bit more, broaden the community. Because yeah, I just kind of forget that you don't just have to buy a house and land.
Yeah.
There are so many other options. Granted, you can get council permission, and I'm not too sure what it's like in New South Wales. Do you know if they're fairly strict or not?
Well, this area that we're in right now, we picked this area specifically, not just because we have friends and we love the way that we feel and it looks in this area, because I mean the coast and the mountains like meet in one place. It's stunning.
Yeah.
But we picked this area specifically because I went on this massive research phase where I called all the councils in New South Wales and Victoria, trying to figure out what their understanding of sustainable and alternative housing was like and what they were accepting and not accepting of. Because back when we first started talking about moving up here, we were really focused on having a yurt as our home.
Right, yeah.
But the reason we stopped going towards that goal is because of COVID hitting. It became really difficult to ship things over. It became really expensive. And then a yurt traditionally... The yurt traditionally is it's made out of like lattice, which is maybe bamboo or a similar type of wood that's a hardwood. And then it has a plastic or vinyl lining, which as we became more sustainable and aware of like our resources and what is being used for housing, we didn't really like the idea of that, and wooden yurts were just a little bit out of our price range. So yeah, there's just so many ways to go.
Yeah,
I
so
feel like we've
interesting.
considered every single pathway.
That's so cool. I need to chat to Scott a little bit more about this and see what
Yeah,
where we
because
can go.
even a traditional home doesn't have to be traditional as you say it in that way, because a traditional home is one, let's say, square space that's broken up into rooms. It can be single story or double story, but then you can have a traditional home with all the rooms except that they're not joined together.
Yeah, true.
So around here, we've seen a lot of homes where you have the communal area, so the living room, the kitchen, the study room, and then you might have a bathroom connected to that. But then the bedrooms are like a walk down.
Yeah, cool.
So then if you need that privacy for yourself and you don't want to be in the space of everyone else, it's just a little walk over to a separate room or like a little studio made out of something as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love watching YouTube videos of all the alternative living styles and the houses and like the earth houses.
Earth ships.
Earth ships.
They're so beautiful.
They're really
Hard
cool.
work though.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I suppose it's all got to fit into the climate as well here, and bushfires, I suppose, is one of the bigger things.
But earth ships are perfect for that.
Okay.
Because earth ships essentially are almost fireproof. I wouldn't say anything is completely fireproof, but they're made from earth. And during a bushfire, I mean, the earth is affected, but it's mainly the plant life on top and the soil. While if you're building an earth ship, a lot of the time it's really well insulated from the heat of a fire, but then you can also build it into the ground. You can build walls around it with the clay or the tires or whatever else you use to build your earth ship. There's also like straw bale homes again, which are really fireproof. It's just incredible what you can achieve and build if you really set your mind to it.
Yeah. Have you started looking for land yet, or
we
having an idea of what you might want?
Yeah, we definitely we know that we want at least 20 acres. Right now we live on 24 acres. A lot of it is bushland, mind you, but we feel like this is a perfect amount for us because we're not too close to our neighbors, except the people that built across the road.
Yeah.
But we're not too close to our neighbours. We've got that privacy, but we're also able to manage what is around us without feeling overwhelmed, because that is one thing with a big block of land is a lot of the time if you don't put the time out to manage it, it can become overgrown or become even dangerous. So that's really important. But because we are hoping to work with our families in the future, we have started considering more like 100-acre anchor blocks.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The only difference with them is that the banks class them as commercial properties. So we have to justify having a business and a use for them, which is fine because homesteading goes hand in hand in that.
Yeah.
But it does make it that little bit trickier to be able to justify to the banks that we can actually raise money with our homestead and be able to pay for it and look after it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think for me, like I'm more focused on the land. Like the land would have to be good quality to be able to grow things and have a flower farm, and just our business kind of structure that we would like, because we would like to have multiple different like cabins or have some kind of area where you can stay and enjoy and have small scale weddings. But yeah, we just need to do the first step of finding that way of getting the land, which is probably a lot more obtainable than the land and house.
Yeah.
And maybe looking towards something a little bit more alternative for the housing.
Which you have to, because a lot of the time banks, and this is something that put us at a stop still, is if you're only purchasing the land, banks either require you to keep paying rent, or they put that into your like loan agreement or contract, or they expect you to have a contract of how you're going to build your house straight away. And so alternative housing can get you onto the land and paying less for your mortgage sooner and then building your next home as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this has been a really interesting conversation, because I had no idea that you had like looked into alternative housing so much and chatted to the banks and looked at house prices and all different alternative styles. I feel like you've really inspired me to look into it a little bit more. But
I think it comes from us, Sam and I, being quite frugal and being raised in families that didn't come from money. That alternative living just felt like it was the only way forward for us, because a traditional home just wasn't suiting to our lifestyle, but also wasn't suiting to our finances. And there is just so many different ways and directions that you can go that, it's definitely been a journey for us to look into it all and find the perfect thing for us. We did want to say too that we're not opposed to any type of living. We really we really do appreciate seeing all the different ways that people make home, whether it is in a traditional home in a suburb, a city, or even out in a rural location, or if it is a bit more alternative and affordable.
I'm just super interested in it. It's like, although it might not be for me, but I love learning other people's perspectives and, you know, talking about whether it is sustainable or not, and how people are just learning how to do things in alternative ways, and just, you know, I don't know, getting out of the status quo really, and just focusing on something else. It's really, really inspiring. So yeah, if you've got any like good recommendations of really cool houses or eco villages that we can look into, like I'd love to learn more, because I love learning about this topic. It's
and
so
I love being inspired by it all. I just love the innovation of the human mind.
So cool.
That's it's exciting to me.
Yeah.
So thank you for another wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed listening and watching. We've got lots of other episodes, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube and any type of podcasting app that you listen to. There's a lot on the list.
Yes, there is. We're everywhere.
We are.
We are in all your ears.
Yeah.
Don't forget to leave us a review if you can. We would really appreciate it. Leave us a comment to let us know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, whether you actually live in an alternative home yourself. We would love you to join in on the conversation.
Definitely. Thanks so much for listening.
All right, see you next time.
Bye.